Welcome to Chronicle Quest, where we explore the darkest corners of human history. Today, we delve into a subject that is both horrifying and fascinating, the most notorious incidents of human cannibalism. These are stories of desperation, survival, and the extreme measures humans have taken when faced with unimaginable circumstances. Viewer discretion is advised. Our first story takes us back to the harsh winter of 1846 to 1847, to a group of American pioneers known as the Donner Party. Their journey began with dreams of a better life in California but ended in a tragic tale of survival and cannibalism. The Donner Party, comprised of 87 men, women, and children, set out from Missouri in May 1846. They aimed to reach California using the New Hastings Cutoff, a supposed shortcut through the Wasatch Mountains and the Great Salt Lake Desert. However, this route proved treacherous, leading to significant delays and depleting their supplies. By late October, the Donner Party reached the Sierra Nevada mountains, only to be trapped by an early and brutal snowstorm. Unable to proceed or retreat, they built makeshift camps at what is now known as Donner Lake. As the snow piled higher, their food supplies dwindled, and hope began to fade. Facing starvation, members of the Donner Party were forced to make an unthinkable decision. To survive, they resorted to cannibalism, consuming the bodies of those who had already perished from hunger and exposure. This grim choice allowed some to survive until a rescue party arrived in February 1847. By then, only 48 of the original 87 members were still alive. The tale of the Donner Party remains one of the most harrowing episodes in American pioneer history. It serves as a stark reminder of the extreme lengths humans can go to in their fight for survival. The site at Donner Lake stands today as a somber memorial to those who endured this unimaginable ordeal. Our next story takes us to the brutal and heartbreaking events that occurred during World War II, the Siege of Leningrad. For nearly 900 days, from 1941 to 1944, the city of Leningrad was encircled by German and Finnish forces, cutting off supplies and trapping over 2 million people inside the city. What followed was one of the most harrowing stories of human endurance and suffering. In September 1942, Adolf Hitler ordered the encirclement of Leningrad, intending to starve the city into submission. Over 2 million were trapped inside the city, as German forces blocked all land routes and bombarded Leningrad with artillery. For the people inside, there would be no escape. As the siege dragged on, food supplies dwindled to catastrophic levels. Rations were reduced to as little as 125 grams of bread per day, and this bread was often made from sawdust and other inedible materials. The harsh Russian winter set in, with temperatures plunging to -30 degrees Celsius. The people of Leningrad endured extreme cold, constant bombardment, and a lack of food. By the winter of 1941 to 1942, starvation reached such levels that some residents turned to cannibalism to survive. Corpses were often left in the streets, and food became so scarce that government authorities issued warnings against eating human flesh. Cannibalism, though horrifying, became a last resort for those on the brink of death. There was one lifeline, the frozen Lake Ladoga. In the harshest of conditions, Soviet forces constructed the road of life across the lake. It allowed limited amounts of food, medicine, and supplies to be brought into the city, but it was never enough to relieve the widespread starvation. The people of Leningrad held on by a thread. Finally, in January 1944, Soviet forces managed to break through the German lines, lifting the siege. Over 1 million people had perished during the nearly 900 days of suffering, but Leningrad did not fall. The city's resilience and the incredible endurance of its people became a symbol of Soviet strength during World War II. The Siege of Leningrad remains one of the longest and deadliest siege in history. It stands as a powerful reminder of the human spirit's ability to endure even in the darkest of times. For the people of Leningrad, their survival came at an unimaginable cost, but their story lives on as a testament to human resilience. Our next story takes us high into the unforgiving Andes Mountains, where a Uruguayan rugby team's routine flight turned into a horrifying survival ordeal. The 1972 Andes flight disaster, also known as the Miracle of the Andes, is one of the most extraordinary tales of human endurance in modern history. It's a story of hope, desperation, and the unimaginable length survivors went to in order to stay alive. On October 13, 1972, Uruguayan Air Force Fairchild plane carrying 45 passengers, including a rugby team, their friends, and family, departed from Montevideo en route to Santiago, Chile. As the plane passed over the Andes Mountains, it encountered severe turbulence. The pilots miscalculated their position, thinking they had passed the mountains. In reality, they were still deep within the Andes. Disaster struck when the plane crashed into a mountainside at high altitude. Of the 45 people aboard, 33 initially survived the crash. Stranded at 3,600 meters, surrounded by nothing but snow and jagged peaks, the survivors quickly realized that rescue was far from certain. With no sign of help and little food, they faced the brutal reality of their situation: freezing temperatures, injuries, and the loss of friends and family. The survivors scrounged whatever they could from the wreckage: a few chocolate bars, wine, and some snacks. These limited rations quickly ran out, and their situation became more desperate. In the face of starvation, they made the agonizing decision that would define their story: to survive, they would have to eat the bodies of the dead. It was a choice that no one could imagine making, but the survivors knew it was their only option. They prayed and discussed the decision as a group. Ultimately, driven by hunger and the will of live, they agreed to use the bodies of the dead as their only source of sustenance. It was a choice made not out of barbarism, but out of the pure, primal need to survive. Just when things couldn't seem to get worse, an avalanche struck the survivors' camp, burying much of the fuselage and killing 8 more people. The situation became even more dire, as the remaining survivors were forced to fight not just against hunger, but also the deadly elements. After more than 2 months stranded in the mountains, 2 survivors, Nando Paradu and Roberto Canessa, made the courageous decision to trek out in search of help. With no map and only their instincts to guide them, they embarked on a 10-day journey across the treacherous Andes. The path was brutal, but their determination was stronger. After 72 days in the Andes, Paradu and Canessa found help. On December 20, 1972, rescue teams reached the remaining survivors. Only 16 people had made it through the harrowing ordeal. The story of the Andes flight disaster remains a powerful testament to the human will to live, and the unimaginable lengths we can go to when faced with death. The story of the Andes flight disaster continues to resonate today, not just for its tragedy, but for the incredible resilience of the human spirit. The survivors of the crash went on to rebuild their lives, but the memory of those lost in the mountains remains a solemn reminder of their ordeal. This story is not just about survival, it is about the strength of hope, courage, and unity in the face of impossible odds. Our next story takes us to early 17th century, to one of the first English settlement in North America, Jamestown. Founded in 1607, this small colony on the banks of the James River in present-day Virginia would face an unimaginable struggle for survival during the winter of 1609 to 1610, a period that would forever be known as the Starving Time. When Jamestown was established in 1607, it was hoped that the colony would secure wealth and resources for England. Over 500 settlers arrived by the winter of 1609, optimistic about the future. But despite these hopes, the colony faced difficulties almost immediately: harsh winters, poor harvests, disease, and conflicts with the native Powhatan people. In the winter of 1609, disaster struck. Supplies that the settlers had relied on from England failed to arrive, and local Native Americans tribes, with whom tensions were already high, began cutting off trade and attacking the settlement. The settlers were forced to retreat inside their fort, where hunger, cold, and disease soon took hold. Thus begun the Starving Time. The settlers' supplies dwindled to nothing. They were forced to eat whatever they could find: horses, dogs, rats, and even leather. As the situation worsened, a terrible choice was made. In their desperation, some colonists resorted to cannibalism, consuming the bodies of those who had died. According to accounts from that time, even the remains of freshly buried corpses were not spared. When spring finally arrived in 1610, only 60 of the original 500 colonists had survived the harsh winter. Relief came with the arrival of new settlers and supplies from England. Though they had endured unimaginable hardship, the colony of Jamestown would live on, but the horrors of the Starving Time would forever remain in their memory. The story of the Starving Time remains one of the darkest episodes in early American history. Archaeological evidence discovered in recent years has confirmed the accounts of survival cannibalism, revealing just how desperate the settlers of Jamestown had become. Their struggle for survival is a sobering reminder of the fragile nature of early colonial life, and a testament to the resilience of those who came before us. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's most chilling tales. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, stay curious, and keep exploring the chronicles of history.